Greetings, welcome. My name is Mohapi, working as the Senior Education Specialist or Subject Advisor for Mathematics in Mutao District, not Mutao Mangau Metropolitan Education District. Pardon me for that. So the topic that we're going to discuss right now is called literal equations. The topic that we're going to discuss is literal equations. The first question that you may ask yourself, what are the literal equations? What exactly are we talking about when we talk about literal equations? Literal equations are nothing else but equations that involves two or more variables. Literal equation is an equation that involves two or more variables. What are the variables? A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z. All those are called theta, beta. Those are called variables. Why do we call them variables? When you solve for X, you end up with X is 2. Next, tomorrow, X is 7. X is -3, and so on and so on. So those are called variables. Their values varies from one equation to another. So when you have equation that is got two or more variables, that equation is called literal equation. More often, these literal equations, the question every time will come as make one unknown the subject of the formula. You make one unknown the subject of the formula. If I were to make an example here, look at this formula for the perimeter. Example number 1. The formula for the perimeter is perimeter of rectangle is equal to 2L plus 2W. That is the formula for the perimeter. If I were to interpret this, I would say P is the subject of the formula. Because on the left-hand side, we only have P. All these other terms are on the right-hand side. If the question can say, make L the subject of the formula, it means you'll only have L on one side. All these other terms must be transposed to the other side. That is what we mean by literal equation, where you make one variable the subject of the formula. Remember, literal equations, those are the equations that involves two or more variables. If the equation is written like this, it means P is the subject of the formula. Now here, you've got P equals to 2L plus 2W. The question can say, determine, find, or make R, make L subject of the formula. Make L the subject of the formula. Like I indicate, this is a formula we use to calculate the perimeter of a rectangle. P equals to 2L plus 2W. We want to make L the subject of the formula. As it is at the moment, P is the subject of the formula. Let me write down the equation. If the instruction reads make L the subject of the formula, it means on the right-hand side, you must only be left with L. All these other terms must be transposed to the left. Let me rewrite the formula. P equals to 2L plus 2W. I want to make L, here is L, the subject of the formula. What does that mean? All these other terms must be transposed to the left. And then on the right-hand side, I'll only left with L. Then you have made L the subject of the formula. Let me start by transposing. You see 2W, you transpose to the left. I've got P on the left. Here is P. You transpose 2W to the left. It becomes minus 2W. Because every time, whenever you transpose a term, that term will change its sign. It's positive 2W. When you transpose, it's minus 2W. On the right-hand side, I'm left with 2L. Now the question is, Make L the sum of the formula. How do I eliminate these two so that I can only be left with L? Now you divide by 2 both sides. You divide by 2. The golden rule in mathematics, what you do on the left, you also do on the right. If you divide by 2 this side, even on the left-hand side, you divide by 2. So this 2 will cancel that one. You'll only be left with L. On the right-hand side, you have P minus 2W over 2. We have made L the subject of the formula. We have solved L. We have made L the subject of the formula. We have determined L here. Thank you very much. That is how we solve the first example. These are called literal equations. Literal equations, you've got 2 or more variables. Here we've got P, you've got L, you've got W as variables. They've got 3 variables. Therefore, they are called literal equations. This was the case in the first example, where we had to make L the subject of the formula. Example number 2. You've got the equation. Example number 2. S is equals to U. I'm sorry, V is equals to U plus AT. Then what is that we want to make the subject formula? Determine, make T A the subject formula. You make A the subject of the formula. Rewrite the formula. V is equals to U plus AT. How do we make A the subject of the formula? Okay, right? Here is AT. This U you must transpose to the left. This is the left-hand side and this is the right-hand side. Where is A? A is on the right-hand side, meaning we must take all these other terms to the left-hand side, so that on the right-hand side, we are only left with an A. Now transpose U, V, you've got V on this side. If you transpose U, it's V minus U, which is equals to, because U has already been moved to the left, we are only left with positive AT. You're only left with positive AT. Now that you are left with positive AT, how do we determine the value of A? You divide by T. You divide by T. Here is the equation. V minus U equals to AT. For me to be left with A here, I need to divide by T. And what you do on the left, what you do on the right, you also do on the left. If you divide by T, even on the other side, you divide by T. So that this T will cancel that T. On the right-hand side, you're only left with A. And on the left-hand side, you have V minus U all over T. Then this is our answer. We have made A the subject of the formula. We have made A the subject of the formula. These are called literal equations. Even in this case, how many letters do we have? V, U, A, and T. 4. Literal equations, those are equations that involves 2 or more variables. That's how we solved A in that case. These are literal equations. Second example done, which is very much similar to the second one. I hope as we carry on with these literal equations and doing problems of different types, we'll now get a better understanding of the concept. Example number 3 of literal equations. V is equals to UT squared. V is equals to UT squared. Then the question says, determine, make T the subject of the equation. Remember, like in the previous cases that we have solved, I always say rewrite the formula. V is equals to ut squared. V is equals to ut squared. We want to make t. T is on the right hand side. What does that mean? All these other terms must be transposed. All these other terms must be transposed to the left. On the right hand side, we'll only be left with t. How can we do that? Let's eliminate this v is equals to at. Let's divide by a. Let's eliminate a. You divide by a, you divide by a. You've got v over a, which is equals to a cancels a. You are left with t squared. We want to be left with t is equals to t squared. Then the question is, how do we eliminate a square? How do we eliminate a square? You eliminate a square by introducing the square root. As much as when you've got an equation that has got a square root, you eliminate a square root by introducing a square. Thank you. Now I need to eliminate this 2 here. I've got v over a equals to t squared. You introduce a square root that side. What you do on the right, you must also do on the left. Even on this side, you introduce a t. Now you solve for t. Therefore, t will be equals to the square root of v over a. Now here is t. We have made t the subject of the formula. We have made t the subject of the formula. Thank you very much. I hope we are following the difference. How is this one different from the previous ones? Because the term that we wanted to make the subject of the formula has exponent 2. The other examples, the 2 examples that we did, the exponent was 1 of the variable that you wanted to solve. But in this case, the exponent is 2. So once you have exponent 2 to eliminate, then you introduce a square root. If you have a term with a square root, you will then introduce a square. Some more examples of literal equations. Some more examples of literal equations. We've got v, this is example number 4. V is equals to pi r squared h. V is equals to pi r squared h. We want to make h the subject of the formula. Make h the subject of the formula. V is equals to pi r squared h. Make h the subject of the formula. How do we go about? Rewrite the formula. V is equals to, it's a pi r squared h. I want to be left with h. What must happen to the other terms? I need to eliminate them. For me to be left with h, I must divide by pi r squared. And what you do on the right, you must also do on the left. Divide by pi r squared. Let's simplify. Pi will cancel a pi. R squared will cancel r squared. On the right hand side, you are only left with h. On the right hand side, you're only left with h. On the left hand side, you are left with v over pi r squared. So this is our answer if you want to make h the subject of the formula. Rounding off the very same question, I can ask you, it can be asked differently, like this. In this case, example number 5, you have v, which is equals to pi r squared h. Now, in this case, I'm going to ask you to make r the subject of the formula. I want you to make r the subject of the formula. Rewrite the formula as it is. V is equals to pi r squared h. For me to solve this one, I need to be left with r. I must eliminate pi, I must eliminate h. So I divide by pi h. What you do on the right, you also do on the left. You divide by pi h. Let's check. This pi will cancel that pi. This h will cancel h. You'll be left with r squared. On the left-hand side, you are left with v over pi h. Now we've got r squared there. How do we eliminate 2, the square? How do we eliminate 2? Like we did in some examples that we did earlier, you eliminate a square by introducing a square root. Square root on the right. What you do on the left, you also do on the right. So a square root will cancel a half. You'll be left with r, which is equal to the square root of v over pi h. This is how we make r the subject of the formula. It will always depend on the question. Some may be asked to make h the subject of the formula. In other instances, you may be expected to make r the subject of the formula. These are literal equations, equations that involves 2 or more variables. I hope we are together. Thank you very much.